Court is in session. Did you know 3 lies are told by adults every 10 minutes? Time to suss out them liars.
Welcome back. Judge Claudia here. Court is always in session, but today we have something creepy. It's a story time. It's a real life story time. You asked for it. Well, somebody asked for it. And now you have to listen to it. So I'm from Delaware, where, nothing ever happens. Except for once in a while. And on September 29th of 2003, one of those once in a whiles happened. I'm talking about the case of Jacob Jones and Michael Sizer murdering Kimberly Holten, a 16-year-old high school student. Jacob and Michael were in their 20s. In order to really tell you this story correctly, you got to know the people involved. This is Kim Holten, the unfortunate victim of our story. She is just a young girl. This is Heather Natsakaitis, or as we commonly called her, Heather Nastyitis. Yeah, I know it's mean, but it's high school. She's on the left, and Kim is on the right. There's a reason that I wrote instigator for. We'll get back to that later. Then we have Mike Kaiser. Mike is the accomplice, and he is currently serving life in prison in the Smyrna Correctional Institute. Next, we have Jacob. Heather's in the picture, but I cut her out. Jacob, the tortured soul. And he's dead. Jacob. So you want to know where it all began? Here's where it all began. Polytech High School. Circa 1997, likely closer to 1998, but it was Jacob's freshman year. It also happened to be my freshman year. So obviously I'm telling you a story time. So that means I know something about it. I dated Jacob off and on all throughout high school. Our senior year, he was dating Heather. I won't be vulgar, so I won't say that. What was just going on in my brain, but whatever. Jacob was part of the ROTC program. Very devout. Wore his uniform, looked good on him, followed all the rules. This was a guy that didn't do anything wrong, ever. He was also part of the aviation program. And the funny thing about this particular story is that Aside from Discovery Channel doing an episode, it's the YouTube channels. This is not a well-known story. And you're about to find out why. So anyway, he was part of the aviation. Polytech is a rated high school. So you graduate with your diploma, but you also graduate with a technical diploma. Mine was in certified nurse assisting. Jacob's was in aviation. If you were part of aviation program, you could, if you completed everything you were supposed to, graduate with a pilot's license. Jacob did. So very accomplished. He graduates in 2001. We graduate in 2001. Heather is about a year younger than us, so she has not graduated yet. And Mike Kaiser, the accomplice, actually already graduated. He was a couple or few years older. So he may have been class of 99. He could have been 98, but he definitely wasn't 2000 or 2001 with us. Anyway, Jacob graduates. He goes on to Dell State. Okay. He is completing his degree in aviation mechanics. He already has his pilot's license. Okay. And guess what? He has Dover Air Force Base clearance. Making sense now? He has that because Polytech, being in Woodside, which is only about 10 minutes from Dover, is able to have that aviation program. We have other technical schools, but they don't have aviation that I know of. At least not ones where you get a pilot's license. But I could be wrong. I actually could be wrong about that. Anyway, it's not even important. But being 10 minutes from Dover, the Dover Air Force Base is who trains the aviation. So they learn to fly on the base, which means they have limited base clearance. Jacob also continued going to the base because he's a part-time instructor there. So now to the story of the murder. Jim Holten, whom I never knew, I did not know, was the foster sister. She unfortunately had a mother who was addicted to drugs. She needed to be in foster care. And Jim Holton's parents took her in. So I'm sorry, Heather's parents took her in, took Kim in. So they were foster sisters. And I did not know Kim, but I did know Heather. She was a very jealous, clingy, vindictive girl around that time. And I can tell you, like I said, me and Jacob dated off and on throughout high school. And we did have an encounter right after graduation, but he ultimately went back to Heather, which is probably a good thing. Well, a good thing for me, maybe, but I'll get to that. The the issue was that even after we broke up, and I had been dating other people, well, one other person, me and that person broke up. I was single my senior year, but we were still friends. Like our little lunch table, big long row of tables, and there was, a six section and a six section and a six section and a six section, and they're all connected in one big line. And literally, me and a few other nursing students sat with a bunch of aviation guys. Jacob sat 2 seats down from me. I talked to him all the time, and Heather didn't like that. Now, what's funny is I mentioned earlier there was a Discovery documentary done about this murder. And the only person that I mentioned in all of this that was able to speak on that documentary was Heather. So everybody heard Heather's explanation of how everything came together that fateful night evening. And I don't think that's how it came together. This is all alleged, okay? So if Heather happens to see this, I'm not calling you a murderer. This is alleged. This is my opinion. I'm not saying you are it. I'm saying I think you had something to do with it. So just putting that out there. Because like I said, she was vindictive back in the day. So this photo is the Dover Budget Inn in North Dover. This is where Kim was murdered. I'm not going to go into the horrible things they did to her, but after she was murdered, Jacob wrapped her up, put her in his car, flew onto the base, or got onto the base, I'm sorry, drove onto the base with her. Because he has clearance. Hopped in a small Cessna, put her body in it, connected chains and weights to it, and dropped her after he flew out into the Chesapeake Bay. Kim's body was found in early October by fishermen in Cape May, New Jersey. So if you look at this picture, I've circled where Dover is. I've also circled the tip of where Cape May, New Jersey is. He didn't have to fly that far for her body to. We have pretty strong currents out in the Atlantic, if you know anything about current. But as long as he dumped her high enough that she didn't get washed out into the Atlantic, she stayed in the Chesapeake Bay, he could have just dropped her, right over the line, and her body would have floated right over to Cape May. So, yeah, that's what happened. They were able to trace. They originally, Kim was just missing. They were able to trace the chains that Jacob used to a very specific store in Dover. Looked at CCTV footage and found. Had an interview with him, got led on to Mike Kaiser. Mike Kaiser ended up having a trial. He was convicted of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life. Jacob, they had their initial interview with him, but they didn't have everything they needed. But when they came back to arrest him, He sat in his bedroom with a shotgun. With his parents, his mom and dad, out in the living room. Right there in Carlisle Village. And shot himself in the head. So cops were never able to arrest him. Now I want to tell you about him. So now it's time to tell you about who Jacob really was. Jake was actually part Asian and part white. His mom was Asian, but not like Chinese Japan Asian, like Islander type Asian, I think. I'm trying to remember. I only met her once. Um, I met her once at a ROTC banquet. My brother was also an ROTC and aviation. And he's a year younger than me. And he could bring somebody with him, like you could bring your family with you. And I went. And me and Jacob actually got back together at that banquet. It didn't last very long. I was mean. Like I was always embarrassed by him because he was super dorky, but he was super sweet. He would never hurt a fly. So gentle, never yelled at you. Like, so when this happened, it was such a big what? He was a lover, not a fighter type person. I remember hearing the news about all this and going, what in the world could have drove him to do this? Because something major had to do it. Now, I will tell you this. By the time we had graduated our senior year, he was into drugs and he was into like some heavy stuff. We're not talking about weed. We're talking about some heavier stuff. I didn't know about it until graduation night. So I had no idea that he was struggling like this. He grew up in a very Catholic family, but he himself, by the time we got to high school, was very atheist. Maybe not by ninth grade, but definitely by 10th or the beginning of 11th, he was completely. Because at this point, I was super, super Christian, going to a Pentecostal church. And before him and Heather got together, he would constantly be like, don't you just want to leave your boyfriend and be with me? You know, I can treat you better. And once in a while we would talk about church, and he's like, yeah, but that's the one thing you're never going to get me to go anywhere near. He was like, because it's disgusting, all of it. So he obviously had some major church hurt. Knowing that it was Catholic, he went to a Catholic middle school, I believe. And that could be part of the reason. All I know is he did not believe in God anymore. I don't know what was going on, but whatever it was, you really didn't see it like on his attitude. Like if he talked to you, you would find hints of something, but that was it. The only thing that would make somebody like Jacob do something so violent would be if he felt like someone he loved was in danger. And now you know why I call her the instigator. The only reason he would have killed would have been if, in my opinion, would have been if somebody asked him and told him some elaborate tale about how horrible a person Kim was and how horrible things she does and that I'm getting hurt, I'm getting beat up, and it would have to be something so dramatic that he would decide to do this. And yes, I think the drugs would have to be mixed with it too, because he was really smart. He was a super smarty pants. Um, the only reason for him not to push away all analytics would be if he was high. So he had to have been high, and he had to have been asked. It just wasn't him. It wasn't him. And there have been so many times that I've thought, could I have been a better person to him? Maybe I'm the one who caused some of his issues. And I don't think that's it. And I say that because I dream about him all the time. He appears in my dreams all the time. It's never bad, it's just he's there. And it really makes me wonder if I could have helped him. And it makes me sad. Because you know who is out loose and has been for 23 years? Heather. And to think she didn't have any knowledge of this. Oh, to boot, something I didn't tell you about, because I forgot, is this motel was under Heather's name. It's where her and Kim were staying. They had been staying in this motel together. And Heather was so afraid for her life from Kim doing something to her that she shared a motel with her. And just coincidentally wasn't there that night. Knew not to be there. I don't know what the Dover police were thinking when they did this case. Maybe they had no evidence. It was all going to be circumstantial when it came to her. They were not as confident that they were going to get a conviction, that they didn't even try. And maybe Mike Kaiser didn't know any of this, so he couldn't tell. And then, of course, Jacob really couldn't tell because he killed himself before they got to bring him in again. He wouldn't have told anyway. Well, like I said, he wasn't that kind of person. And of course, they went on that Discovery show and just, yeah, I had no idea why he did it. Didn't have anything to do with me. I had no idea. Investigation Discovery definitely didn't do their due diligence with that either. Because you know who was missing from that Investigation Discovery? Anybody that was a good friend of him. Really. Like anybody else that really knew him. Granted, I know people can change. Things can change in 2 years. People can change. But I'm just not willing to believe that somebody changes from that innocent person to a cold-blooded murderer in 2 years. Now, there's two thoughts. What if, after our little encounter on graduation night, he decided to be with me? He was afraid that I would leave again, so he stayed with Heather. Two things could happen. Number one, maybe he was a murderer the whole time, and I'd be dead and not telling you this story. That's the unlikely version. The likely version is it never would have happened. That's why I think that guilt is why I talk about him so much. Heavy show, not a reaction video, but this is somebody's fault. Lucas, it's your fault. You asked for true crime. You got true crime wrapped up in a story time. It's not your fault. But I love you. All right, so that is today's show. I'm done. I'm gonna get working on a more fun show. Because this is heavy, a little depressing, not funny at all. But I do have some good videos coming up.